Welcome everyone. This is the February Data and Performance Management Committee meeting. Today we're going to be talking about a front-end user dashboard in HMIS, which we kind of talked a little bit about last time. And we're also going to talk about the street outreach project performance reports. Please enter your agency name into the chat box so we know who is participating, and I will go ahead and share my screen for the front-end user dashboard. So as I share this, try to take a minute and put yourself in the perspective of a front-end user. So what we're trying to do is create a dashboard for users when they first come into HMIS. They can see some data about their agency. And we wanted to kind of focus this dashboard on the front end user because they may or may not be comfortable with reporting, or they may not be interested. So this dashboard will hopefully kind of engage them and get them interested, or at least tell them some information that they may want to know about the clients that your agency is serving. And so I'm going to go over with you what is in this dashboard. It was mostly things that we kind of touched on last month, but from my perspective, I think there's kind of three things that we're trying to decide about the dashboard. So the first is the data we want to include, like the measures and so on. The second thing we're going to want to talk about is if this is an agency level dashboard, or do you want to be able to run it by project? And the third is the format of the data, so how you want it to be displayed. So kind of keep those in mind as we go through. And this is a very rough draft, but I'm interested in hearing the group's opinions on how we can move this forward. So the first thing, number one, the dashboard in HMIS will show by default all of the agency data that your user has access to. So in my case, I'm seeing all of the training data that's in the training site right now. And so if, for example, you are a friendship shelter and you only want to see friendship shelter data and not Mercy House data, there will be a drop down here where you can select your agency name to limit those results to your agency. So kind of getting into the data I have here, this top row is looking at new enrollments by project over the previous month. So I have the number of new enrollments for the different projects, and then I also have a list of clients, because that was mentioned last time as something that might be helpful for your front end users so that they can see who their clients are and that whatever this measure is applies to. And keep in mind, anything on here can be edited, anything can be removed, things can be added. I just kind of took a quick pass at what I thought might be helpful. So the first one, new enrollments in the previous month. The second one is clients that gained cash income. And this one I showed over the past few months to kind of help with our formatting discussion that we'll be having. Because that's part of this conversation too. So you'll see a few different formats as we go down. But this is clients that gained cash income and a list of those clients. I also have clients that gained health insurance as a number and those clients. Clients that gained employment. Clients that gained non-cash benefits. Total exits to permanent housing. And this list here is the list of clients with the 20 longest lengths of stay in any project. And so those are the different measures I came up with to start. So to kind of break down our conversation without getting into some of the format and the other stuff, what does the group think of these measures? Are these things that your users, your front-end users would be interested in? Are there things you would like to add or remove, or what are your thoughts on that?
All right, I'll go. So it's just, this is great for housing programs, not that useful, I don't think. Some of these measures are not that useful for me specifically, but we have a weird agency. So, you know, it's, you know, our clients, it's not, for the most part, aside from like our small amount of housing programs, you know, we're focusing on getting them off the streets and not so much focusing on, even though we, you know, probably should, but like, you know, you know, a lot of our clients are like in and out of our program so quickly that we're not looking at income things. But in my past experience, I think that looking at income things is like, that's like the hardest thing for housing programs to increase, you know, same with employment and health insurance and benefits. And so in my past experience, I think that for housing programs, you know, these are kind of the hard to, like they're the hardest measures. So,
so from a street outreach perspective, what would you like to see?
Well, we want, you know, like as far as I mean, a lot of what we are looking at is, right now, we're looking at like the contacts and where we're contacting people. We're looking at how many people we have exited from the streets into like emergency shelter or other, just any other place but the streets, and jail. So those are kind of in, I mean, it's no secret right now, like, you know, we are in the process of kind of getting our staff up to speed in HMIS, and doing the things that they should be doing. So I'm kind of taking baby steps and not focusing as much on things like income. We're looking at, you know, making sure that we're documenting every time that we, you know, give them service, and that we're documenting every time that we see them, which is something that CityNet has never done. We're you know, trying to make sure that we are documenting exits properly. Hell, we're trying to document them at all. So just getting, you know, our data into the system is kind of our feat right now. So that's my perspective. But I only spoke up because nobody else did. So I feel like I'm the outlier. You know, we have a weird smattering of programs in the system. So okay, that's my 2 cents.
All right, I'm also, oh, did someone unmute?
I did actually. Just to second what Cassie said, I see this being incredibly useful for some of our permanent housing programs. Like if I could just run that clients that gain cash income report off of Looker instead of having to wade through an APR and trying to interpret it like a Ouija board, that would be amazing. But again, like I don't see it being particularly useful for emergency programs that are serving people currently experiencing homelessness.
Okay.
Hi. So I'll kind of piggyback, I guess. I do think that the income stuff is useful. but I'd like to see the housing outcomes and the inputs, right? New enrollments to be the two things that are really highlighted. So like housing outcomes at the top and new enrollments at the top, and then the rest would just read like additional. Because right now it seems like increasing income is like the most important thing on the dashboard. And I don't think that that's like a housing focused way of displaying the information. I also, I know that I hate to be the person to whatever raise this one again, but our front end users are not going to use a filter to filter down to just our agency. They're just going to like look at this in passing on their way to, you know, enroll someone in a program or whatever, because they're actually doing live data entry for the most part. They have a client in front of them when they pull up this screen. And even if they did have the time to filter down to just Friendship Shelter, that actually wouldn't show all of our program data, because the reason we have these data sharing agreements with other agencies is because we have collaborative programs with them where either we are the subcontractor or they are the subcontractor. But we have like our bonus 1 and bonus 2 PSH programs with Mercy House. Those are our clients, even though they're registered as someone else's data. So if we filter to just Friendship Shelter, that data would no longer be visible. And that would again paint an inaccurate picture of the services that we are providing. So it seems like even with the filter, it doesn't actually fix the problem. That we want to be able to see all the people that we're serving and not have, you know, thousands of extra people from Mercy House and American Family Housing, nor do we want to have people missing from those collaborative programs. Although I say that totally understanding that that would be super hard to actually get that to work in Looker.
Especially without a filter, yeah.
Well, not saying like it's gonna have to be with a filter, but like, I don't know what way it could. I'm trying to think through it, like some kind of contains or if then statement based on the agency that the user is with. Again, I don't know how it would be possible. It would take a lot of finagling if it even is possible. But I'm just trying to really put myself in the mind of the user that is going to be doing, like looking at this screen on their way to enroll someone in a program. And it doesn't seem like the filter will actually work even if they use it, at least for the intended purpose. And it doesn't seem like without them using the filter that the data will be meaningful to them.
Okay, so let's, for the moment, assume that's resolved. So you're saying new enrollments, you would prefer to see exits to permanent housing at the top and then income information lower on the screen, right?
Absolutely, yeah. If even putting the income information, honestly, I think showing new enrollments and exits to housing and having that be it really paints the story of like housing focused services. And I wouldn't mind if it's just like those 4 metrics.
Okay. Lisa said in the chat, FAM doesn't currently track clients that gain cash income, but the new enrollments by project is useful. Okay. Other feedback on the data included in the dashboard? Is there other things you want added or removed?
Hi.
Hi, Betty.
Hi, yeah. I think it looks great. It really doesn't matter to me what order it's in. Personally, for our program, I think I do a lot of the reports. So having this dashboard is so awesome. I think on the clients, the new enrollment, if possible, could we, if they were enrolled as a VOCA client?
Are you with Grandma's house?
Yes.
So you're saying you would want this broken down by project?
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, we can. So we'll get into that in a second, but yes, we can do that. Any other thoughts about the measures? Okay, so next up is if we want to see this data by agency as a whole or by project. So there's a few different ways we could do this, and kind of goes hand in hand with the format of the data as well. So we could break all of these things down by project like we have here. Let me try and go to another agency so you can maybe see a little more or a little less list of projects.
Erin, I don't know if you're going to get into this, but in regards to this, like the new enrollments, like where it has the, you know, the unique identifier, like the actual client information, is there a way, instead of maybe like the project type code, or is there a way that we can get on the dashboard like their start and end date? The reason that I'm asking is sometimes sometimes we need to look at something like, you know, like sometimes I need to look for a client that's in a specific program just to see what, like how the services are set up or something like that. I don't know, that's just an example, but, and I'm like, okay, I know this case manager, like our current dashboard, I'll be like, oh, okay, I know this case manager has this caseload in this city and that's what I'm looking for. So I'm just gonna click on one of their random clients, and it's like, instead of like running a report, I wanna be able to like maybe find like an open client in that. I know this sounds really silly, but it happens to me a lot for some reason. Where like I want like a quick like way to look at the client's profile if they're, and like know if they're enrolled right now or if they've been exited. Like maybe just this project type code be like something different having to do with like their enrollment, if they're active or not, or I don't know.
So would it be beneficial to have a separate, like another list that's just active clients with start and end dates?
I mean, maybe, yeah.
Because we could put it in here too, but this is only going to show new enrollments like during whatever the time period is.
I don't know, and like right now we're entering and exiting a lot of people in our street outreach programs right away because they're not engaged clients. So a lot of the people that are showing up, like that would be showing up on the new enrollments might not be like active clients specifically. I don't know. I guess I'm just kind of talking now, but maybe just instead of that project type code, have like their enrollment dates.
Okay. Okay. So what I was, sorry, I kind of lost my train of thought. Oh, agency versus projects. So Connor was making the point that we shouldn't have filters on this because some users will not use them. So do we want this data to show agency level only, or do we want breakdowns by projects? Like, for example, in new enrollments by project, we have the project name and the number of clients. We could do it that way, and we could do it for all of these different measures. However, if you like something more like the format of the gained cash income, where it shows the changes over the past 6 months, let me take this off so you can see it. We would have to do that at the agency level. If you prefer this kind of format where it shows how you're doing over time. Same thing with all of these. We can do them so it shows numbers for each project, but it would only be for whatever the reporting period is, for example, the previous complete month. Carlia is saying it would be useful to see enrollments by project. Okay. Does anyone else have thoughts on that?
I think so too. Or at least the ability to see them.
Okay.
By project.
Betty is also agreeing with Carlia. Okay. So Armando agrees too. Okay, so then if we did that, all of these on the left would look like this new enrollments by project. It would list your agency's projects and then have numbers. So that's fine. And then on the right side is where we have client data. So first, just wanted to confirm that everyone likes having like aggregate data on the left and the client data on the right, that's useful. Carlia also said length of time in project as well, because we could see at a glance where they are at by project. Okay. Carlia. Okay. Do you want to see all client length of stay for all clients in the project, or just the top 20 like we have here, the 20 longest? Betty says she would prefer client data on the left instead, so that's just a switch. Carlia doesn't think we need client data. There were a couple people at the last meeting that did say they wanted to see client names because they thought it would be beneficial for their users so they could actually see like, oh yeah, I enrolled Alexis Rose. But if anybody else has thoughts on that, that would be helpful.
Yeah, I think we should keep the names. The client data.
All right. Betty agrees. Okay, so, and do these columns have what you need for your clients? So we have the unique ID, so you could easily search them in HMIS. We have their full name, so you can see who they are. Project name is here, so you know where they're enrolled, and project type code. Cassie mentioned adding start date and exit date. We can remove project type code if that's not helpful. I just wasn't sure if some of your users, how familiar they are with all of the project at your agency, so that's why I included it, but if it's not needed, we can take project type code out.
I think that's something that we're more in tune with than our end users. I don't think they really need to know that for any reason. Just my opinion.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not sure if project type code is necessary, but I also, just because this is only showing new enrollments, I don't know how useful it's going to be to have a start date and an exit date. I doubt that many of them will have exit dates. And I mean, if they do, I guess that would be a bit of a rarity. How is new being defined?
So in this report right now, it's looking at those project start dates in the previous month. So that's kind of why I was wondering if we should add like an active list of clients so you can see everyone that's in a project that was active in the previous month with start dates and end dates.
So for us, I don't know how many people every other agency is serving in a month, but I think for us that list would be a little lengthy and not too useful to have to cruise through with a scroll bar.
Yeah.
And
Speak
I
for
definitely.
yourself.
Oh, pardon.
I mean, well, I'm okay with whatever you guys do. You know, whatever ends up happening with this, I'm good. I will say again that the project type code is not something that they're going to care about. But to kind of answer to what Connor just said, we do have a lot of clients that we're picking up and taking to shelter and exiting them, you know, same day, next day. So that's just us. But again, I know that we're a weird agency and that we're not the norm. And I think a lot of these things that we are trying to do, and like, I think a lot of the things that are on this dashboard are for the more important measures that housing programs are trying to focus on. So I understand that. So whatever you guys decide on this, I feel like I shouldn't have that much of a say. I'm just talking to fill space sometimes, so.
Okay. Anyone else have anything they want to add? The other thing I wanted to ask about is for this dashboard, what the time period should be. Right now, it's set to run for the previous complete month. So this is January data. We could do it more often if you guys would like we could do the previous complete week. I don't know if that's helpful or harmful, but that is an option too. Is there any thoughts on that? No one's worried about it. Okay. We will keep it to month for now then, unless we get feedback otherwise. Any other last thoughts on this dashboard? Going back really quick to, I think it was John that mentioned earlier about the gained cash income. Would your front end users care about these, even if you're a housing agency, or are these better as looks that you can run and then we just take them off of this dashboard?
JP?
Hi, sorry. I think they're good as just looks. I'm pretty adept at modifying the filters and everything. So if it was just there set up like that to reference freely, I think that'd be beneficial. I'm not sure if anyone else has any particular preferences.
I like things really simple, and I'm in favor, especially if this is going to be like front facing for the end users. I'm in favor of it just having new intakes and housing outcomes. I think is great and paints a really succinct picture.
Okay. Betty is saying that she would like them. Can we include the date they received the entitlement? We can include the date that the information was collected in HMIS, which may or may not be the same as the date they received it, because the date received isn't currently in HMIS. If you did want to collect that information, we would have to set up some custom fields for you and do that separately, and it wouldn't be on this dashboard. Any other thoughts on the income benefits, health insurance stuff? All right. So we will take your feedback back and make some adjustments. We may present it again at this meeting, or if we feel good about it, we'll just do it at the user meeting. But thanks for your participation. And when it's published, we can also make adjustments as needed. So keep that in mind also. So the other thing we wanted to talk about today was the street outreach project performance reports. So if you haven't seen them already, this is the project level performance for the different measures. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail on this report, but just so you know, it is available. And it has each project name, the different measures, and then what percentage of the measures that project met. And then I want to spend, gotta find it, hold on, a little more time on the goals and outcomes report. So the reporting period for this report was December 1st, 2019 through November 30th, 2020. And the 4 measures that this group wanted to look at for street outreach was entries from literal homelessness, length of stay in the street outreach project, successful exits from street outreach, and returns to homelessness after being placed in permanent housing. So you can see on these charts how the project type as a whole has been performing for each measure over the previous 2 reports that we've pulled. We are really close to 100% entries from homelessness, which is great. We'll get into a little bit more detail on where those non-homeless entries are coming from. But I did think it was kind of interesting that we had a jump in the length of stay for street outreach projects. I'm wondering if any of you street outreach providers have any input on that. Has things changed with when clients are entering and leaving due to COVID? Or is there anything else that you could think of that would cause this increase?
I don't know, like factually, but I'm wondering if it has to do, again, with shelter capacity. And honestly, if I was homeless, I would not want to be in a shelter right now. I would rather be on the street, like, you know, roughing it than being in a place with a bunch of people. Maybe that's it. but I really don't have anything factual to say, but that's just a thought.
So you haven't had any change in like your processes or any of your means of communicating with your clients or anything like that?
We have been, I mean, not really. We've still been going out. We're still, you know, on the streets. We're still, you know, providing the same services. We have, I mean, I don't think that our change in the way that we've been doing data in the past like month, or not even month, like couple weeks, shouldn't have affected this. I don't know.
Okay.
I'm not sure if this is it, but I mean, the world basically shut down from like March to May. There was just like 2 months of inactivity while people got their bearings again. Maybe street outreach teams weren't on like physically on the streets interacting with people during that time, and the enrollments just kind of stayed static. We at Friendship Shelter, I know, took a little time to adapt to the new situation before we started sending people back out to do outreach at the beach. And I would be curious to hear if other agencies had a bit of a lag time there after March 15th.
I think we did try and get, like, do a lot of like case management and things like that over the phone. But again, I don't know that that was really hindering our abilities to like put people into shelter. Because, you know, if you're outdoors, you have a better ability to socially distance than, you know, I don't know. I don't think that was, I don't think we shut down. I was not there during that time, but, you know, I wasn't with sitting at that time. But it didn't seem like, you know, we were backing off that much.
For those of you with street outreach, when you have not had contact with a client for a long period of time and you exit them, are you exiting them on whatever that date is that you decide to exit them, or are you exiting them on the last date they received service?
We have been telling the case managers to exit them on the last day that they saw them.
Okay.
That said, we were not doing current living situations. We were not providing services within HMIS. We do keep internal logs. And my hope is that we were giving accurate exit dates. We did do a cleanup, you know, kind of when I started, that would have, you know, helped with the amount of people, like the caseloads that were there. But, you know, again, there's no real telling when the last time, like, there's no hard evidence of the last time they saw them. So it's possible, you know, that we had some staff that were just exiting them kind of willy-nilly. I don't know. But we instructed them to go back to their logs and exit them when the last time I saw them.
Okay. Any other street outreach providers? All right.
Can I ask a question just about goal 8?
Sure.
So it's maybe more of an issue that we had internally. So if this is just us being weird, just don't listen to me. But goal 8 is to help clients exit to successful housing situations. But a successful exit from street outreach is not necessarily housing. You can exit, as we all know, you can exit from street outreach to emergency shelter, and it's successful, but you're still homeless, right? So you didn't achieve a housing outcome. Your episode of homelessness hasn't ended. But because the label on the program performance report card, the last one we were looking at, says goal 8, help clients exit to successful housing situations, and we had a 79%. A few higher ups at the agency, at Friendship Shelter, interpreted that as 79% of people be in the street outreach program who exited becoming housed, which has made for some really strange internal dialogue. And I fielded like 3 or 4 phone calls around that over the past couple of days. I understand that that language is taken from the program's system performance measures. So we shouldn't change it, but at the same time, it might be good to like put an asterisk in there or something, because it does. I mean, even when I read it, it's easy to just say, oh, all those people became housed. And that's definitely not what we're trying to say.
Okay. We do have that on the actual measure page, but we can consider that. The other thing I did want to point out for goal 8 is how much of a jump we had, which is great. And I did want to ask the group how everyone felt about increasing that threshold. So the current threshold is 10%, and we've easily met it both times we've run the report. And should we increase to 15%?
I'm in favor.
Sure.
Yeah, I like it. Everyone's feeling bold today. Lisa also says yes. All right. And for goal 10, we also have been keeping our returns to homelessness after permanent housing exit low. And should we decrease this threshold? So, because we're trying to keep returns to homelessness under 15%, should we decrease this threshold to 10%?
No. This is out of our control, Erin.
But
second that. Let's not try to set goals that we have no control over. Or
so I'm not saying push it to 10%, but we definitely have some control over this. It's not something we're totally out of the, like, we have an ability to affect it by placing people in appropriate housing situations, and in our experience, not coding things as permanent housing that aren't actually permanent housing. Like sometimes we'll get ambitious and we'll say like, oh yeah, they moved back in with their parents or whatever on a permanent tenure, when we really know it's going to be temporary, you know? And so I'd say taking that into account has been a way that we've decreased our returns to homelessness at Friendship Shelter. So I guess what I'm trying to say, we definitely have an effect for it, although I'm not advocating that we go down to 10%.
what about 12%?
Well, you think you can barter with us?
No, that's not as hard. 15, it's at 15 now. So if we went down to 12 instead of 10, we would still be trying to improve, but not as much.
People are going to hate me, but we've been using 10 internally the whole time. So I'm fine with 12.
Any other thoughts? And just to provide some context, the reason that we keep trying to slowly make our thresholds a little more challenging is because this data is being reported to HUD as a COC, and we are being scored based on if we are getting more effective in our performance or not. And so that's why I bring these a couple up every meeting, is because of that, is we don't want to be in a position where we're not improving and then we don't get scored as high on our COC application, which means we could get less funding for new HUD projects. So that's why I ask. So I'll leave this one at 15 for now, since it seems like Connor's the only one who's feeling risky today.
Oh, just do it, Erin. Just do it.
I would say that if we can do it and the group realistically feels that that's something that we can achieve and the math makes sense, sure. Again, I'm not sure if I'm understanding the logic of holding ourselves to a higher standard. Like, if we don't hold ourselves to this higher standard, does that adversely affect us?
Only the reason that like I said, the reason I'm pushing for improving our threshold is for HUD reporting. If you meet this measure or don't meet this measure, it doesn't have any impact on anything really at the moment, unless you are receiving funding that is looking at these performance measures. So like if for COC funded projects, these data points matter more because they're used in the NOFA process. But for street outreach projects don't get COC funding. Some of them do get ESG, but I'm not sure how closely the ESG providers are looking at these measures. So yeah, that's something to consider also. There's no direct effects of not meeting these thresholds. So I'll set it to 12%. And I'm just kind of looking at the project performance. There's only 3 projects, or 4, that would not hit that 12% threshold right now. All right, so moving on to the specific measures. Goal 1, clients entering from literally homeless situations. Like I kind of mentioned already, we're doing really well on this measure. On the right here, you can see where clients are entering from that are not entering from homeless situations. And I did want to point out that a little over half of them are missing. So I kind of wanted to ask the group about that. Since this is looking at the client's prior living situation, so that where they were staying the night before they entered the project, I'm wondering why there are so many missing, because you have the opportunity to ask the client this question when you enroll them. Does anyone have experience with that?
As one of the programs that did not meet this threshold, I am going to blame it on the large hearts of our outreach workers in that they were willing to serve people who weren't even homeless. Especially for us, I think 1 or 2 people that we served that weren't literally homeless were people who our agency has had probably a decade worth of interaction with. So they're people that we already knew, and it's likely someone that the street outreach worker interacted with on Main Beach. And entered into HMIS just because they interacted with them. So it's more of a policy thing that we would have to look at to prevent, get people to ask that as a screening question and then terminate the enrollment if they don't answer it appropriately.
So do you think that your users are not answering it because it's not homelessness?
Oh, pardon. I think I misunderstood the question. I will confess to currently writing a job description right now. I'm so sorry. I was distracted. You're asking why people hadn't been filling out this question?
Yeah, I was looking at this.
53%. That is far more disturbing. I have no idea. I don't think we have that problem. I'm going to go back to not talking now.
I'm not totally sure, but I can probably place a lot of blame on our agency for just not utilizing HMIS the way that they should be. But I will have to look into that. It's just it's hard because I kind of walked into like a mess, and you know, a lot of these questions kind of like, it is what it is. There's no turning back now, because a lot of those people are gone. So I would not be surprised if this is us.
Okay.
Yeah. So I can definitely do a deeper dive and maybe get some more answers. And it might just be that people are hesitant to give us that information for whatever reason. But I would not understand why it's like completely missing. So these are including like things that are like data not collected and like client refused, things like that.
Yeah, we consolidated those into anything. Yeah.
I can definitely look into that. But I'm okay with taking some, that blame.
All right, everybody blames Cassie, very specifically Cassie. Okay, so I just wanted to bring it up because I thought it was worth noting, especially because exits, it makes a little bit more sense because a lot of clients disappear. But I feel like it should be a little bit easier to get this information at entry, but that's kind of why I asked, is to see if there was other experiences. The second measure is looking at length of stay. So this is how long clients are staying in your street outreach projects, theoretically participating in your street outreach projects. There's a little bit of variation between the different populations and subpopulations. I was kind of interested to see that veterans are participating longer in street outreach. And I was wondering if anyone had thoughts on that.
Hi, Erin. I want to ask a quick question looking at the goal number 2. When it's reporting on temporary shelter, does that include emergency shelters as well, or are those categorically different?
So the title means that we are looking at this measure for street outreach and emergency and transitional. But specifically, this data is for street outreach only. Okay. There's different project types that share the same measures. So we try to word them in a way that it made sense for the different project types.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
I will insert myself once again to say this is an example of the goal names being a little bit misleading sometimes. I've seen this problem crop up on a couple of the performance reports in that they're so broad that people who aren't, just people who don't understand that we're using the same goals across multiple project types can be confused by them.
Okay. Anyone have experience with veterans in street outreach? and if there's any difference in their process. The other thing I wanted to mention about this measure is this little chart breaks down the length of stay for all of the enrollments that were included. So the good news is that 61% of the clients did meet the threshold, so that's great. And then you can see some breakdown by category. 285 clients were in street outreach for more than a year. But we are on the right track with 61% of the clients being exited by the threshold of 65 days. All right, goal 8. We kind of talked about this a little bit earlier, but this is clients exiting to successful housing situations. So for street outreach, that is permanent housing, but it also includes most other exits that are not the streets or jail or missing data. So we've actually made a lot of progress for street outreach on this measure over the past few times we've run this, which is great. We're currently at 43%. And then you can see on the right, we did a little breakdown of successful exits as well as unsuccessful exits. Almost all clients are not exiting street outreach to permanent housing. They're exiting to other successful situations. And within these successful situations, around 90% of them are going to emergency shelter. So it seems like the projects are kind of functioning the way they're supposed to. They are linking clients to shelter and exiting them there. So that's great news. And then for unsuccessful exits, almost all of them are missing, which is kind of to be expected because, like I mentioned before, due to the nature of street outreach projects, a lot of clients do disappear. So that is why that number is so high. The other thing I wanted to ask the group about was there are only a few clients in households with only children, but of those clients, only 12% are exiting to successful housing situations. I'm kind of wondering if this is a data entry error, if these households with only children, so that means everybody in the household is under the age of 18. Are these really households with only children, or are these children that should be in households with adults and there's a data entry error? How many youth, I guess, under 18 alone clients are your street outreach teams finding?
I know we don't serve youth at all at our agency, so it's not us. Do we have in the county, anywhere in the county, street outreach programs that are specifically designed to serve youth experiencing homelessness?
Not set up in HMIS right now, no.
Oh, Carlia says stand up for kids, but not in HMIS. And do you happen to know the underlying data? Are all of these households with only children coming from like one program, or are they kind of spread out amongst programs and agencies?
I would have to go back and look at the specifics, but my guess is it's spread out.
Yeah, I got nothing.
Let me look. Cassie, is CityNet serving clients under 18 at all?
No. but apparently we are. They're probably, sorry, my dog is whining. They're probably errors.
Okay.
Yeah, just to add to that, if there are any kids in Mercy House or only child households in Mercy House, that's an issue because we don't serve households with only children.
Okay. That was kind of what I was suspecting, but I wanted to, I know some projects will take anybody, so I just kind of wanted to see what the vibe was of the group. So our last measure is clients that are exiting to permanent housing situations and then later returning to homelessness. So you can see our universe of clients is pretty small because, like we mentioned earlier, a lot of clients are not exiting street outreach straight to permanent housing, and because of that, they are excluded from this measure. But there are a few clients that do. So, oh man, I lost my notes. Hold on. Oh, so you can see it's fairly consistent across the different population and subpopulations. The chart on the right, the top chart on the right, is looking at where clients are returning to after they return to homelessness. So they exited to permanent housing and then they are re-entering HMIS, and these projects are where they are returning to. So the majority of them are returning to emergency shelter or street outreach projects, which kind of makes sense. They're starting the process over again, which is unfortunate, but that's how it goes sometimes. And then the bottom chart on the right is looking at when they do exit to permanent housing from street outreach and then later return, where are they exiting to? What type of permanent housing are they exiting to? So most of them are either going to own to rent with no subsidy, which seems unlikely. Some are going to own or rent with subsidy. There's some going to PSH and a couple going to family or friends permanently. So I'm a little bit suspicious of this top one, that they are exiting street outreach to permanent housing that they either own or rent without any subsidy. So that's something to kind of keep your eye on when you're looking at your project performance details reports and corrections, is making sure the data makes sense. To me, I'm not sure if this does, but I don't know if any of you have experiences where clients are exiting your permanent housing to rentals that they are not receiving a subsidy for.
I mean, this includes rooms for rent. So, I mean, it happens occasionally. I would say in street outreach, far more common if someone in our tiny little Laguna Beach program is moving directly into permanent housing. It's normally that they're reunifying with family or friends.
Okay, yeah, that's kind of what I was suspecting. All right. So that was the last measure that I have for street outreach today. So we do have a little bit of time if anybody has any other questions or comments about any of the measures that we've talked about. Otherwise, we'll wrap up a little bit early. We did forget to mention at the last user meeting, we are hiring for the data analyst position. So if any of you know anyone interested, please direct them to our website. There's a link there. Our next meeting will be March, just a minute. March 11th, same time, 1:30 on Zoom. We will send out the agenda prior to the meeting, but Connor is planning to present his agency's dashboard that they're using for racial inequity. So tune in next time for more on that, but we will send out the rest of the agenda prior to that meeting. Any other comments, questions, feedback?
Now that we are fully utilizing HMIS, we will have a little bit more time to look into all these things that we just got called out for. So,
I mean, to be fair, you called yourself out.
I was gonna say.
I mean, yeah, but it's because everybody was kind of quiet, and everybody also knows that we have the largest street outreach project. So
Mercy House has a bunch now too, though. So
that's true. That's true. But they're in South County. They're like, I feel like there's still not a whole lot of clients out there, but maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. That's true. I do see this, that Mercy House has quite a few.
Anything else? If you haven't already, please put your agency name in the chat box so we know who's participating. Any last comments, questions? All right, we're going to wrap up early. We will send out an email with the meeting minutes as well as the recording from this meeting. And thank you all for attending and participating, and we will talk to you next month.
Bye, friends.
Thanks, Erin.
Bye.
Bye.